So one of the things I'm going to talk about is what's at the root of the problem. What are we going to have as our new roots, and last of all, how to give a root. Because it's, I'll pick up on some of the points to answer to Paul quickly, and then we'll get into a Q&A. So I'm going to be quite controversial because a lot of my journey from being a farmer, dairy farmer, to market gardener, to setting up CSAs, and then setting up Food Connect, and then working with academics, working with entrepreneurs, and now trying to engage with investors, particularly impact investors and other likes, has really explored for me some of the things that Paul and Nick had spoken about. In particular, the human foible. One of our human foibles is, at this point in time, and it leads to all the other things that Nick mentioned, is this concept of we are individuals. We have become separate. We're just here to look after ourselves, and that's it, and that's where everything else rolls on from. And of course, the Indigenous people always say, at every concert, at every gig you go to, they always say, we are all one. This is all Indigenous people. They say the same thing every time. They must think we're absolutely nongs, us white folk, because they say it every time and we still don't get it. So even though Nick and most people would be very anti-Coles and anti-Woolworths and anti-corporations, what they are is they're expressing the worst of their individualism. They're coming into teenagehood, as it were. Those of you who have brought up teenagers know that what we have to do to, and most us Western people don't even go through this rite of passage, is we have to push away our parents. We have to push away our schools. We have to completely alienate ourselves from the world that we exist in order to know how much of a dickhead we are, how stupid we are. We come back later on and we say, Mum, I do love you. I said all those hurtful things earlier on. And in a way, that's the way corporations are behaving, because we come out of this root journey of humanity, of being individuals. And so we are entering a really interesting time where corporate behaviour, and this is where I say, don't touch them, let them go. Let them expose themselves badly. That's why Tony Abbott getting in is such an exciting thing, because he is going to expose himself. His knuckles are going to drag on the ground again. All of the things are going to come out, and all those people who voted Liberal are going to see how bad that form of, and this is Labor as well. Labor have already done it, and the Labor people are walking away in droves, or they've got their heads down. So we have to let this fascist government expose itself, so the rest of the population can see it. So don't try to save them. Don't try to help them. Same with corporations. Let them expose themselves to see how rooted they are and how rooted they've made the system around them. They've tried to control things. So at the root is this individualism, avoidance of responsibility. There's not enough, and Nick said there's plenty, because we've got enough food to feed 12 billion people. If you include the enough food that now goes into cars, to fuel cars, corn and such, and this economic, this whole system, global system that we're in, is driven by an economy, and now we're starting to move away from that, and we're starting to see, other elements of our humanity, other aspects of why we exist on Earth. What are we actually here for as an individual? Because we're starting to come out and say, oh, Jesus, I aren't a machine. I'm not going to work for the man. I'm not going to work for this government. I'm not going to do what this director or DG says to me. We had DGs, we had bureaucrats that were fierce and strong. We've gone through a period where they've been totally co-opted, but now we're going to see a re-emergence of people in government who are going to stand up to politicians because they are being exposed. So we're going to see people find their star. What are they about? What are they going to do to contribute to the world? Because as Nick said, when you look at the science, it's very, very scary. Those of you, put your hands up. Who has read the latest? Who's actually looked at the read the stuff and looked at it and said, and has thought to themselves, you know, we're in deep doo-doo? Who is really aware of that? Okay, so you need to get that this is a really serious issue, but don't fight the existing reality. Create your new future. Find your star. You probably have found your star. Most of you have found your star in here. And drive for that, because that's what's going to take us, because the economy is created from the future. Your life is created from the future, not from the past. The past, you know, we've got baggage, sure, but there's so many modalities, there's so much training around personal growth that we can get rid of some of that stuff and emerge into what we want to see in the future and what we want to create and get connected. So some of our new routes are about getting connected, and that thing about the community gardens there, that 3-year journey, I saw that as an amazing success, because that community garden isn't about production, it's about community. And they stuck together, and I don't know, I'd love to know the stories that were involved in that. That's 3-4 years without getting a patch of land to grow, you know, who knows what. So that's a story about those people getting connected, forming alliances, going through the tough phases. Every talk they gave in front of those people who were saying, oh, you know, my house price is going to go down, all those people in that room, they should have treated that, this is an advocacy exercise. We don't really give a shit if we get our community garden. We're going to let all these people know about the food system and how exciting it could be, and you know how serious food issues are, and put them straight, put them right. I imagine that's what they did. Walked away and went to the pub and said, yeah, we used it just to get a community garden, just to get in front of these people and tell them about food. I don't know. And when you get connected, when you move out of your individuality and you're about me and about us and them and all of, and you know, society, then you have to become sophisticated. Culturally sophisticated, intellectually sophisticated, and that's an amazing thing. That's when your ears tune into what Indigenous people have been saying for a long, long time. They say amazingly sophisticated stuff, simple stuff, but we miss it. So when you move out of individuality, you start to get into that, and that's where this new food system, and why is Paul talking about food and climate change? Why is Nick talking about food and climate change? It is the worst problem on earth at the moment, therefore it is the biggest solution to climate change. Nothing, and all things, nothing cuts across all sectors. Health, economy, employment, energy, all the things. Food is the number one. There's nothing else on this planet that is going to bring society to where it needs to be than food. So it's got enormous impact across lots and lots of sectors. And the biggest one, in particular, about creating your own future is through enterprise. So let Coles and Woolies go. Let them do what they want to do. You know, they might join us later on. They might, who knows what's going to happen, but don't put any energy into it. Don't go in there, don't feed them, don't do nothing, you know. And when I say we're all one, we're all one, so what do I do? I am the CEO of Coles, who I hate. The former CEO, Roger Corbett, I used to have him on my dartboard when I was a dairy farmer, because he forced me out of business. And so I thought about this, and I thought, how can I be, you know? And I thought, no, I'm pretty tough on myself. You know, if I'm going to treat Roger Corbett, or whoever it is now, as me, I'm going to get tough on him. I'm going to say, hey, buddy, you know, do you know how many farmers committed suicide this week? Do you know that 76 farmers left the land this week in Australia? Do you know that 8 soccer fields of good agricultural land disappeared in the minute I just spoke to you? Did you know that in Australia? This is in Australia. And be really tough with him. And you need to be tough with him. So that's how we start to give a route, to really get serious with these folk about treating them as me and saying, I'm not going to tolerate that from you or anyone. Like you wouldn't tolerate a person abusing a gay person who's being picked on, or a Muslim person, or anything like that. You see something, well, I don't see it, but you know that you would stand up for that person and act in a fair way. So, so these new economies, so Nick spoke about the amazing thing that's going on around the world, and Paul mentioned that we can learn a lot from what's going on overseas, and learn a lot, not only from overseas and other places, but also the past. But I think I think in Australia we've got an interesting, and it was great that Paul used the vernacular about being rooted, or it's rooted, is that there is this, Australians use that vernacular, and when you talk about planting rules, and I think Australians should stand up to those planting rules or just ride over them. We do see that with gardens being grown on the verge. Costa's done it. TV personalities are doing it because they know they're not going to take on, what's his name there, Jerry Colby-Williams, because he's just going to turn into a big media circus and they'll be walked over like anything. So I think there's something in particular about the Australian iconic way of being. We're very multicultural. We're extremely proud of our of something through us called fairness. The tall poppy syndrome, a lot of people see as something of a failure of Australian society, but I think there's something in there that we can actually utilise to show the rest of the world how a new food system could be built. Not to mention the fact that Australia is very, very different from most countries on the planet, including America, with its lack of food culture. We've got a lack of food culture as well. So there's something interesting. Yeah, sure, learn from the past, learn from other examples going around Australia, but also we can actually imagine something. I don't know what it is, but there's something particular about the Australian culture that I think will give a root and try to do something about this. I think that's about all I have on my mind at the moment in terms of what Paul spoke about. The only thing I wanted to add was just on the flood story. To finish off with a little story, when the floods hit back in 2011, Rockley got wiped out, and I really thought when I designed Food Connect, I designed it around climate resilience and a whole bunch of other things to do with peak oil and all those sorts of things. But I didn't really think too much about a big flood like that. That was, I'm from Victoria, I hadn't seen a big flood like that. And I thought when it rolled in on the Tuesday, Wednesday, I thought, holy shit, this is the one thing I hadn't thought of, because all our farmers are under this rain. The supermarket's going to be fine, everyone else is going to be fine, because their farmers are, 50% of them are overseas, and the rest of them are all other parts of Australia where it's dry. And I thought, oh no, we're dead ducks here. And then Thursday I called the produce managers, and we're all pacing around because the water, currently this time Brisbane's, you can't get to a lot of places, but our drivers still went out there because they had local knowledge. They were in little vans. Our farmers could still get stuff into us from under the rain because they were small farmers. They didn't need big machinery. They didn't get bogged. They didn't have irrigation ripped up. They didn't have flood laser graded properties where the flood waters could actually pick up speed and take them down. And then by the Friday when we rang around all the farmers, they all said we've got enough produce and we've actually got excess. So they're going to send it into us. So we become a mini Rockley. We even had Bellberry, they couldn't get food into Bellberry. We had canoes and four-wheel drives and people getting around the cops and paddling across to get the food into Bellberry. Now imagine, we're Food Connect, we're only 30 odd people, 80 odd farmers. Imagine if the whole country was that diverse and that resilient and that all small and networked and was doing all sorts of things. No one would have felt a blip. A bit of rain would have been on places. But it was an amazing story, and we were the only ones that really survived, which was just incredible. So it just proves that a local, a relocalised solution can really work in almost all adversity. So thanks.